Anora is a recently released drama. I think it came out like a week or two ago. It stars Mikey Madison. Is it Mikey or Mickey? I think it's Mikey. It might be Mikey. I haven't seen a lot of women that have that name. My name is Hannibal, so I'm like the last person to be commenting on how weird someone else's name is. I don't know, I'm not used to it, but I think her name is Mikey. Pretty sure she was the evil bitch off of Scream 5. I could be wrong. Was it Scream 5 or Scream 6? I'm pretty sure it was Scream 5. Either way, Anora is about a woman named Anora. She is a sex worker living in Brooklyn. One night, she meets the son of this really rich and famous oligarch, and she ends up going off with him and getting married to him. Now, her fairy tale ending is kind of in jeopardy because his parents in Russia find out about this marriage, and they come to the States to get this marriage annulled. Thus, what follows is one of the most chaotic movies of 2024, no doubt. All I've heard about this movie is that it's really good, that Mikey Madison is really good, that everybody should check it out, that it's possibly up for award consideration. Did recognize that chick from Scream 5, like I said. Otherwise, I went in blind. To start off with things that I like about the film, I do think that the film is well directed. I do think that it is incredibly well shot. One of my favorite things about the direction for this movie is that it does utilize some gritty handheld on some scenes when it calls for it. Specifically the lighting. The lighting is such a strong point of emphasis in this movie. I especially love the way that they light up the club scenes. There are a lot of scenes in this movie that involve clubs and involves lighting, neon lights and flashing lights and stuff like that. And I like the way that those scenes are lit up. I like the way that the composition shifts. I like the contrast between that and a lot of the grittier like New York scenes, the subway scenes, or scenes with people just riding in a car. I like the way that they contrast all of that. Mikey Madison is the reason to watch this movie. She really does give what they call a tour de force. I have no idea how you're gonna feel about her character. Whatever you feel about her character, you can't deny the performance here. I mean, she is committed. She is probably the most unserious and unintentionally hilarious thing about this movie. This movie does feel like it's trying to capitalize off of that uncut gems style of filmmaking where it's like a lot of yelling, a lot of arguing, a lot of chaotic stuff going on, a lot of people talking over each other. It's supposed to drive up your anxiety in certain scenes. That is definitely effective, but I also think that the script here lends to a lot of intentional and unintentional humor. A lot of scenes in this movie where characters are doing or saying incredibly wild things and you can't help but laugh at it. And then there's other scenes where it feels like it's not supposed to be funny, but because of the way that it's directed and the way that it's delivered, you can't help but laugh at it. So in some ways, this movie has some dark comedy aspects to it. This is one of those movies that has a plot that kind of goes on and you're not really sure where it's going. So kudos to the movie for being a little bit unpredictable, but it's more unpredictable in the sense that scene to scene, you don't know what Anora is gonna say or do. You don't know what's gonna happen. The movie is very chaotic, it's a very sprawling, spread out plot, and I do feel like because of the chaotic nature of it, there's something entertaining going on in almost every scene, so it does have that going for it. Unfortunately, when I use words like sprawling and spread out when I'm talking about the plot of this movie, it also is kind of a backhanded compliment because that also means that the movie is a little bit meandering. It means that the movie doesn't really have a point or a focus for like 80% of the film. A large portion of the movie, you're kind of just wondering, where is this going? What is the point of this? And then you can see certain things happening before they happen. Then you're just kind of sitting there holding the bag, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And in that sense, I do feel like the pacing for this movie really does drag it down. Pacing feels very drawn out here. Almost every scene and sequence in this film feels like it has been pushed to its breaking point by the scriptwriters, where it's like, how can we take this as far as it can go to make the movie longer? A lot of it really unnecessary too. Like a lot of scenes just feel like they're going on and on and on and there's no end in sight, and I feel like they could have definitely got to the chicken a little bit quicker in this movie. And this affects the runtime of the movie. Like by the time you get going on the story and you really get into the meat and potatoes of what it is, it feels like half the movie is over. And unfortunately, the movie hasn't even really gotten started at that point. So by the end of it, you're like, did the movie really need to be this long? And it just kind of keeps going and going and going and on and on and on. And then it just gets kind of exhausting by the end of the movie, I'm not gonna lie. My issues with the plot and the story and the pacing and all of that, that could be one thing. I feel like I'd put up with it better if the movie had more likable people in it. Unfortunately, most of the characters in this movie are just not likable people. They're not people that you can be invested in. They're not people that you can root for. That applies to Anora, who is entertaining for sure, and the performance is really good, but you don't really care about her as a character. Characterization is very thin here for pretty much everybody. You don't really get a lot of insight into these people, who they are, what makes them tick. They're just kind of doing things, and that's what the movie feels like. It feels like it's just doing things, the movie. That leads to some entertainment, but it doesn't lead to engagement, and because I couldn't engage with this movie, I found myself exhausted and bored by the end of it. I can't really highly recommend this movie, even if I do think it's well made. Anora, while it was entertaining, is not something I can highly recommend. I'm gonna leave this one in the Fortress of Solitude. Those are my thoughts on Anora. I really wish I liked it more than I actually did. Did you see it? Did you like the movie? Go ahead and put that in the comment section below. Tell me what's the most chaotic movie that you've ever seen in your life. Like the movie that is absolutely wild and makes no sense. Put that in the comment section. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.